All right, guys. Sorry I couldn't be here today. You know the drill. We're going to take some notes on some new information today. First off, you've probably already been introduced to Miss Douglas, our substitute for today. Everybody say hi, Miss Douglas. All right. So I'll talk for a minute while you guys are getting your notes out. So what we're going to do today is take a look at the settlements that happened over in North America. Where we left off yesterday, we had just finished looking at what the Spanish were doing in the new territories in the Americas. So what we're going to look at today involves the other countries. We're not going to look at Spain today. We're going to look at countries like the French and the British. So we're still going to stay over in the Americas. We're just changing what European country that we're focusing on. So everybody's ready to go? Let's take some notes on North American settlements by the Europeans. All right, so let's start off with the first country that you saw in your homework yesterday and last night. That's the area of the French. So we'll start with New France. Now, as you saw in your homework, the French were trying to find that same kind of quick way to head west. They were trying to avoid the Americas. They're trying to find a way around it. This was that part in the video where it talked about they were trying to find that Northwest Passage. So these explorers that were sailing west, that was their big goal, finding that Northwest Passage around the Americas to get over and travel quicker further west. But what we start to see is that the French start settling and finding areas around America to hang out at. I'm going to throw a lot of names out at you for this next section. You do not need to know all of these people's names. And I'll say that again. You don't need to know every single one of these people and what they did. But I do want you to kind of get a general understanding of what's going on. So the first guy that really gets things going as far as settling in the Americas for France was this gentleman here. His name is Giovanni Verrazzano. Giovanni Verrazzano is going to come in and sail west. And one of the places he's going to kind of settle in is a very famous place that you guys know, and that's going to be the New York Harbor area. So we're up in the northeastern part of the United States. And Verrazzano is going to explore the New York Harbor region. Once that area starts to get a lot of action as far as the French are involved, other people are going to come over after Verrazzano. The next person after Verrazzano is going to be a guy named Jacques Cartier. Jacques Cartier, very French-sounding guy. Now, he is going to, in that same area around New York Harbor, and he is going to sail down something called the St. Lawrence River. I'll show you that in a map here in just a second. But what Cartier is going to do as he's sailing down the St. Lawrence River is he is going to stop at one place that he thinks would make for a really good trading post. Remember, we'll talk about why the French are there in the first place, but trading posts are going to be really big for the French. And the place that he stops was at the base of a mountain, and they called this place Mount Royal, or if you want to get the French accent in there, Mont-Réal. Wait a minute, Mont-Réal. Maybe this is the current location of what place in Canada? Montreal, right? So Mount Royal, Mont-Réal is going to become Montreal. And I'll get into that place in a second. And Cartier is going to set up this big trading post, a very important one for the French, at the base of Mount Royal, Mont-Réal, which is going to open the door for our next guy. I told you, lots of people. You don't need to know every single one of these people and what they did. Just kind of understand what the French are doing here. This guy's name is Samuel de Champlain. And Champlain is going to expand further in and around that Mount Royal area. And he is going to claim that part for France. Now, Montreal is part of what Canadian province? Anybody know? Montreal is in Quebec, and that is what Champlain is going to help found. So as you're starting to see, the French are spreading out throughout what we know as today as modern day Canada. And this will be the basis of what will be known as New France. These guys kind of set the groundwork. They're going to be what gets the ball rolling for establishing New France. Let's take a look at who these people were. So again, we've got Giovanni Verrazzano holding something that looks like a candy cane. Why? I don't know. But that's Verrazzano. Here is Jacques Cartier. Like he is trying to solve a very important riddle. And here is Samuel de Champlain. Was not paying attention in handwriting class. So I said, these are the guys that lay the groundwork for New France. Now to expand it, we're going to see the French start to head further south here. The next group of people are looking to expand what the previous three people got started. The first group to expand is going to be a group of explorers, a pair called Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet. Great names, right? Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet. They're going to explore the Great Lakes region. So we're going further south, the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Huron. And these guys are also going to find the northern part of the Mississippi River. Last person. This guy's name is Sieur de La Salle. Don't you love these French names? Sieur de La Salle. De La Salle is going to continue further southward. He's going to go all the way down the Mississippi River and claim land both to the east and west for France. Now, La Salle's a smart guy. La Salle is going to claim all of this land for the French, and he's going to do a little sucking up to the king while he can. Because as he is claiming this territory, both to the east and west of the Mississippi River, he is going to name this territory after the French king, King Louis XIV. We'll talk about Louis XIV a lot in our next section. So if he's going to name this after Louis XIV as the French king, what might be a good name for this territory? Excellent. Louisiana. Right? That's why that name is area is called Louisiana, after King Louis XIV. So it doesn't take long before France has a pretty strong hold over the entire Midwest area. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here is how the country is kind of divided up now. Let's take a look. We said that it started with Verrazzano coming down. Here's the St. Lawrence Riverway. Jacques Cartier is going to settle down the St. Lawrence Riverway into Quebec. They're going to expand through the Great Lakes region. You can see how it's going further south. Next steps, Great Lakes region, the northern part of the Mississippi River, and then all the way down, claiming land both the east and the west for France, all the way down. This is the Louisiana Territory. So you can see, compared to where the Spanish and the British are, the French have a ton of land. Now keep that in mind. Keep this map in the back of your head, because I'm going to come back and talk about this one in just a second. So the French have a ton of territory that they control. But this was something that you saw in your homework. They have a lot of land, but what about the number of people there? Is there a lot of people in this area, or just a few number? Or lower number, I guess. Yeah, only about 60,000 or so. There's not a lot. It's very sparsely populated. Now, the French don't have any desire to settle there permanently. We're not bringing our families. We're not going to move our stuff permanently. the whole idea of leaving France and going to the Americas was on a temporary basis. It was to conduct your business and then head back home. You were not looking to start a new life over here in the Americas. It was very temporary. So that's why in this giant area here, you've got maybe 18, 20 different states that are made up here. You've only got 60,000 or so people. All right, think about that. More people show up to an Alabama or an Auburn football game. All right, maybe Alabama. Auburn's not that good this year. And there are more people in that stadium than are in that entire region here. More people at Bryant-Denny Stadium Saturday than in this entire green space. So not a lot of folks. Again, they're not there to settle permanently. They're not bringing the wife and kids with them or the goldfish. Who is coming over here, you got to put them into one of two groups. You're going to have the Catholic priests who are there to help spread Catholicism, trying to get people to adopt the Catholic ideas. Or, and this is where most of them came from, you had single men who were there to trade furs, or they were there for fishing. That was a big one too. That was the two big industries, furs and fishing. So they were looking to make a quick buck, turn around, and head back to France where they lived. Their home was still in France. Like I said, they're not trying to establish a new home here in the colonies, the North American territory. So that's basically what the French are up to. That's how the French get involved with the Americas, and that's what their plan is. Well, what about the English? Let's take a look at them for a second. Now, the English in North America are going to start thanks to the works of a guy named King James. Not the basketball player, that's a different King James. This King James, we'll talk about him a lot in the next section too. This King James is going to continue what his cousin Elizabeth did as far as spending money on colonies. Remember, we talked about Elizabeth I. One of the big criticisms she had was she was spending lots of money. She was bankrupting England. But we said that what she was doing was investing in expensive colonies. They were not cheap. So this is Elizabeth's cousin, James. James is going to also continue this tradition of spending money on colonies. And so he is going to charter a colony. What that means is he's going to write the check that's going to pay the people's salaries to go over and establish this colony. And since the people that were going to establish this colony are very thankful to their king, they thought, just like we saw with the Louisiana part, they would name this colony after King James, and we'll name this city what, or this town? Perfect, good. This is going to be Jamestown. Now let's talk about the Jamestown colony for a little bit. This is also in your video, some good information about Jamestown. So when Jamestown was established, the men that were part of the crew at Jamestown were mainly trying to do what? What was their main focus? Exactly. They were trying to find gold. They were hoping to find their Inca. They were hoping to find their Aztec. They were looking for gold. They were panning for gold all throughout the James River. Hopefully they can find gold there. And they do not get off to a good start. Jamestown is not in an area where there is lots of gold. So they were hoping to find their civilization that they could conquer, like the Spanish did, make lots of money, go back filthy, stinking rich. Now, this group did not plan very far ahead. They did not think about what they need to do as far as a long-term plan. Their focus was on trying to find that gold, get out of town, and stay there get out as quickly as possible. stay as short of a stay as they could possibly have. So that they did not start to grow crops. They did not start to, like I said, plan long term. And this, coupled with some really bad weather, one of the worst winters on record, ends up killing 70% of the first settlers that came over. 7 out of every 10 people did not survive the winter, the first year. That's a lot. But things will turn around. Before they give up on the Jamestown colony, they were saved thanks to what crop? That's right, tobacco. The one thing they could not eat that saved their colony. Now, it doesn't mean that they started serving tobacco with every meal. What that meant is that they said they could find a market for this crop. They could grow this crop very well in the American colonies, put it on ships, send it over to Europe, and sell it for a huge profit. So because this had a similar profit, like those spices coming over from India or the porcelain dishes coming over from China, this was something that they could make a nice profit off of. Since it was profitable, then the English government is going to put a lot more resources into making sure that this colony is going to succeed. It has the necessary resources to survive. So tobacco, the thing that kills you, saved you. Kind of a strange thing. So tobacco was one of the things that grew very well in this Virginia, North Carolina region. So thanks to that, they're going to get a lot more resources now. This is what the original Jamestown fort looked like, this triangular fort. This was also in your video, I believe. So this was the original fort. They did have to fight off, like you saw in your video, lots of attacks by the natives. You heard the story about John Smith, Pocahontas, Chief Powhatan. So I'm not going to go over all that again. It was in your homework. You do need to know those things. And you can see the original triangular fort. You can also see that a little bit later, they expanded outside of the original fort walls. This is the James River up here. And so this, you can tell, is several years into the Jamestown experience. The fact that you have people outside of the walls there. So Jamestown became the first permanent English settlement in the New World. There was one before that at Roanoke, but that one did not survive. Roanoke was a failed colony. We don't know why, but it didn't succeed. Jamestown did. Jamestown was the first successful colony the English had over in the Americas. And so because Jamestown was a success, then the English can start to build on and create something that will be called New England. So let's look at the establishment of New England. Now, the first group that is planning on coming over on a permanent basis, people you heard about many, many years ago in your history classes, these were the Pilgrims. Now, the Pilgrims are going to come over from England. And real quick, Sean, what was the boat these guys came on? There you go. Exactly. Good job. That was the Mayflower. Good. It was not Columbus's ship. So Pilgrims come over on the Mayflower. You got it right this time. And they are going to land and establish their colony. Anybody remember what it was called? Plymouth Rock. Good. All right. Plymouth, Massachusetts. And the story that you heard about them coming over for religious freedoms is absolutely true. That one was not a lie. They did want to escape all of the religious turmoil that was going on in England. All right, think back to what we learned a section or two ago, all the different religious changes that were happening in England. Remember, Henry VIII was a Catholic, then Anglican, and then Edward was going to go Protestant. Mary was going to go Catholic. Elizabeth wants to go back to Anglican. So with all of that mess going on in England, that is why the Pilgrims said, we're done here. This is too frustrating. We're out of here. We're going to go home now. We're going to go and start a new home. And they left and started to go over to the colonies so they could practice their religion without all of the upheaval that was going on in Great Britain at the time. So the success of the Pilgrims is going to lead to other people wanting to come over and establish their colonies too. The next one comes about 10 years later. This is going to be the Puritans. Now the Puritans, another very religious group, they're going to come about a decade later. And what they're going to establish is a place called the Massachusetts Bay Colony, not too far from where the Pilgrims established. Now, what the Puritans wanted to do is they wanted to set an example. They wanted to kind of be the model society that other people can copy. Look at how the Puritans are doing it. Now, one of the things that really stands out to the Puritans is they made no qualms, they made no attempt to hide what they were doing. They brought their families with them on the very first trips. They said, we are leaving our lives behind in England. We're starting our new lives here in the colonies at Massachusetts Bay. And having the family support there was very important. It helped as far as like the stress, as far as like coping with any type of difficult situations. Having your family there just made it more relaxing. People enjoyed their lives more, knowing their wife and kids were right there with them and not an ocean away. So the Puritans are going to also be this very religious group that is going to come over, set up, and try to be this model community. We're almost done. Let's do one more group, one more slide, and we'll call it a day. The last group I want to look at today is going to be New Netherland, the Dutch. Now, this one was also in your video, but there was only, this is probably the smallest of the groups. There's really only one main person associated with the Dutch and the New Netherland, and that was an explorer named what? Remember his name? Good, you were paying attention. Right, that is going to be Henry Hudson. Henry Hudson is going to come over from the Netherlands. He was a Dutch explorer, and you've probably heard of things that are named after Henry Hudson, things like what? Right, yeah, the Hudson Bay, the Hudson River. All right, that's this guy. And just like the French, Henry Hudson is going to try to set up trading posts as well. He wants to also get into the fur trade. He wants to also get into the fishing business. Now, probably one of the biggest trading posts that he was able to establish was a place called Fort Orange, like the color or the fruit, Fort Orange, which today is Albany, New York. And then, as you saw in the video, the Dutch were able to establish their main area to focus on, and it came after a real estate purchase when they bought what place in modern-day New York? That's right, they bought Manhattan, one of the greatest real estate deals in history. Manhattan Island. This is where they talked about building that wall that separated the territory. Remember the wall story? It came Wall Street. So Fort Orange and Manhattan Island. Now, one of the things we've seen with the Dutch, right, is when they take over, they're going to use their economic power. They're going to set up these trading companies. And they set up a trading company here too. Now, previously, that trading company that we saw over in the East was called what? What was their trading company called? Exactly. It was the Dutch East India Trading Company, that really powerful company over in the East. Now, they don't want to get that company confused with the one we're about to talk about. So they're going to make sure it is completely different as far as the names are concerned, because this one is going to be called the Dutch West India Trading Company. Different than the Dutch East India Trading Company. I think they probably just had a lot of leftover like stationery, and so it was just easy to cross out one word and write West on there. I don't know, but it is kind of confusing. So the Dutch West India Trading Company, like I said, their main focus was to try to get out there and expand the fur trade. Now we'll talk about some of the problems that the Dutch run into, that's called the British, a little bit later. But for now, Henry Hudson, after establishing Fort Orange and Manhattan, have created this thing called New Netherland. So I'm going to stop here for today and for the week. No homework over the weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Watch some college football. Maybe Auburn can finally beat LSU. We'll see. Probably not, though. But what we're going to look at on Monday is, now that we've got these different places established, this is going to lead to conflict. All right, we're going to have lots of conflict that takes place over here in the Americas. So that's all I've got for today. Good job taking notes. Have a good weekend. If there is any time left in this class period, I think there should be a little time left. Please use this time as a study hall. I want you guys to be quiet. Do not get your phones out. I do not want you listening to music. Please, Ms. Douglas, if you see a cell phone, take it. I do not want anybody using your phone right now. I want you working on something for school. You can be going over your notes. You can be reading your Fahrenheit 451 for my pre-IB students. There's something that you can be doing for school. So treat the rest of this period as a nice, quiet study hall. I do not want any talking. I want you guys quietly working on something for another class, okay? Have a good weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Oh, and one last thing. If you are planning on coming to the movie night, make sure you print off that permission slip, get that signed and back to me. All right, I cannot let you into that movie without that permission slip. So get that permission slip signed, okay? Now, for real, see you guys.